it's according to, it's only like 2 minutes after.
Ready?
All right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oregon City Metro Enhancement Grant Program Committee. We are meeting hybrid, online, and on in person. And did I say it too soon?
I want to make sure.
All right. So we have, for the purposes of the people who are in the audience, let's quickly go down the line and introduce ourselves.
Well, for starting at this end of the line, I'm Frank O'Donnell, one of your city commissioners.
Rocky Smith, City Commission.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Oh, yeah, can you mute yourself?
This is their screen.
And I'm Lori Wilson. I'm a citizen.
Matt, if you're gonna be here in person, go to.
Matt, you have to take your phone off. Yeah. Okay, perfect, thank you. Is that Corey? Corey, is that you online?
No, it's just Matt.
Okay, then who's the phone?
I think it's Ann.
Well, it can't be Ann, Ann's here. Okay, it's just not off.
And you are?
Yes, I'm Denise McGriff, Oregon City Commissioner, and we have our staff, Ann Griffin, and our staff, Matt Zook, our excellent finance director, and our economic development manager, Mr. James Graham. And hopefully Councilor Lewis will be here, and is Corey online yet? Need to get there. While we're waiting to see that, because I'm thinking, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we have 7 members. Okay, so we have.
We're good, yeah.
All right, so let's look at the minutes of April the 11th. I think that might have been 2021, because did we meet in April 2022? Maybe we did.
We did.
Okay, do we have any corrections or additions to those minutes?
I don't see minutes from that meeting.
I have mine in front of me, but I already gave staff my corrections. It's mainly spelling and just getting people's names right. So can I have a motion to adopt as corrected?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor will just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then we have the revised minutes from the meeting of June 10th, 2021 that we have. And I also sent in some corrections on that as well.
I move to approve the amended minutes from 2021.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we're gonna, we've got motion and a second on the virtual meeting minutes from June 10th, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign, and we have no abstentions. All right, so let's go to the conflict of interest statements. And basically what I thought we would do with this is, as we get to each item, if there is a conflict or an ex parte contact, we will take that at that item. What can you hear, Jerry? Jerry, can you hear me?
Doesn't look like it.
Yes, I'm asking, can you hear?
Yes, I'm here.
No, can you hear?
Yeah, barely.
Okay, do we have the additional,
Your phone?
yes. No, it's something that they can put in their
Headphones.
ears, and it's got a little amplifier. We have one in each of the buildings, I believe.
I'll look and see what I can find.
Okay.
Thank you.
Might be in that cupboard too. All right. So is that, okay with everybody if we do it that way? As we get to each item, if there's a site visit or conflict, then we can announce it prior to the presentation. That way it'll help, I think, perfect. Help staff keep track of that.
Well, I'm gonna state already that I'm not gonna be ranking any of the projects tonight. And I will explain that if we're gonna get to that point later, but I will not be ranking.
Okay. All right. So we'll make sure Ann gets that down for the notes. Mr. Zook, I believe that you are up on deck next. So Ann, Commissioner Smith said that he will not be voting on any of the items. I think maybe he talked to you about that ahead of time. Okay. And if for some reason you can't hear us, please just raise your hand. I'm going to try to keep my eyeballs open for any of that. All right, please take it away.
All right, thank you. Good to be with you this evening. Enhancement Grant Committee. I've got on the screen here, I've got a display of the financial report that was included in the packet. And essentially what this, if we can minimize that, yeah, that'll work, and just slide that to the top. Essentially what this report is intended to do is let you know the status of the Metro Enhancement Grant as of June 13th, 2022. And I'll just cover the highlights. It sounds to me like this is not a report that's in the audience, so I'll walk through it on the screen. As of the beginning of this current fiscal year, the program has $413,000, as indicated right here. Is that, those numbers big enough for the audience? Anybody may expand that? Okay.
Just watching the screen.
The revenue is listed on the top, and every year we get payments from Metro in a quarterly basis, and so the numbers reflected here in blue are the numbers that we have that we have received, and there is a projection here of 90,000 per in the final quarter, and that might look high, but that's essentially based on historical trends per quarter. So things do tend to go up in the last quarter. So by the end of this fiscal year, we anticipate having an additional $341,000 on top of the $413,000. So that's about $700,000. Now we've made commitments both in prior years and in this current fiscal year. So here in this section of the report, these are what I'm calling expenses or commitments to organizations for grants that we've already awarded. So this column here, this whole section right in here is basically prior year awards. And then down below here, we have current year awards. Of the prior year awards, there's 5 remaining outstanding, and you can see the original award amount here, amount we've already paid out, the amount we anticipate paying by the end of this current fiscal year, and then amounts that will be unused. So that'll be back in the balance. The latter section is, of course, a lot larger because we awarded grants a year ago for this current fiscal year. And so,
Mr. Zook, could you go back just a minute? So
Sure.
the 1,300 and the 2,788, so that, it says it's return, is that because they weren't able to use it?
I would defer to James on why the reason is, but either they've reached out to Ann or James and indicated, hey, we're not going to spend that amount, or essentially that's what it is. They're not going to spend that amount. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So then under the current year awards, you can see the list of awards there and the amount that's been spent thus far. You may recognize the number 252,480. That was what was awarded about this time last year. And to date, 105 has been spent. And we have not added back in any unspent money because we do not know yet whether or not any of these grants will be, we're assuming this is all going to be accomplished in this current fiscal year. So basically at the end of this current fiscal year, the fund will have $572,000 and for us to enter into this new award cycle. Now there's some commitments we've already made, and that's again taken out back down here on this 146,000. I believe the committee has generally committed to award $200,000 each year. last year we had a conversation about the timing of those awards and doing it with cash in hand, not committing revenue that we haven't received in the current fiscal year. So that's partly why that balance is a little bit high. It's because we are waiting until we have cash in hand until we make those awards. So it's anticipated tonight that you have roughly $200,000 to award. Last year, you made an allowance for greater than that $200,000. You, as a committee, went up to the $252,000. And you have that latitude just by virtue of what I'm displaying here. You've got, additional funds if you decide to go in that route. Program management costs is what's allowed per the agreement with Wes. And,
Wes,
excuse me,
Metro. Yes,
sorry.
Thank you. Different, wrong agency.
I deal with a lot of them, so
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a test.
Okay.
So,
we have.
we anticipate in this next current fiscal year, 2022-23, and getting another $325,000. So, in essence, by the end of next fiscal year, June 30, 2023, we anticipate about $500,000, a little bit greater than $500,000 in funds. So, all in all, the fund is, the Metro Enhancement Grant funds are sufficient for awards. And as we discussed last year, there's extra on hand. Part of that was in this may be a moot point this fiscal year, but last year we talked about the potential of whether or not Metro was going to be moving their station out of Oregon City and whether or not we continue to get revenue. So if the Metro was to leave today, we'd still have that much on hand to spend towards future grants, and we wouldn't be overcommitted on any financial commitment. So hopefully that's clear to you in that explanation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Are we taking into that account, considering some of these are asking for potentially 2 or 3 year extensions? Or will be coming back as their phase 1 programs?
On this report, I think that James will give an overview, I believe, on the next item on the agenda for request for enhancement grant program extensions. That is for this current fiscal year, I believe. So there are a few that are asking for extensions, and I have included that in my calculation. This section right in here, I'm trying to get this so it'll display correctly. Outstanding or extension requested. I'm assuming that every single dollar award is going to be spent, whether that's by June 30th of this year or extended out to a future year. So all the numbers you see here still provide this committee with the latitude to extend if they want to. And if they choose not to extend, then you have even greater funds to award to a new applicant if so desired. So the list on the screen does reflect that the entire grants will either be spent by June 30th this year or extended. So
Isn't what we already awarded, didn't that just get carried over? I mean, that's my assumption.
I've made that assumption as well, but I do, historically, my understanding is that this committee makes those choices on a grant by grant basis at these meetings.
Yes, but I mean,
So-
we already awarded the grant to, applicant, Soulflags.
Right.
So they have spent some money, and then there's a remainder still in this little pot over here. They spent this money, but that gets shifted over, subject to the extension request.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought you were trying to say. Okay, are there any other questions about the financial picture? All right, then we will go to extensions
Do you need to approve that? Do you need to vote to approve that?
on this financial status?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
no. We know the money's there.
So Ann will talk about the request for extensions. We have 3 on the docket for extension requests, and I'll turn it over to Ann.
Well, thank you, James. I do want to also let the committee know that I did hear from Corey Ellis, who's traveling. She was intending to join by Zoom. The meeting that she's participating in is running long. So she is not on the call and not sure she's going to be able to join, but
Well, if she jumps in, just let us know.
yeah, she's going to keep us posted. Well, as James said, good evening, everyone. I'm Ann Griffin. I work in the Economic Development Department here. As James mentioned, we have 3 requests for extensions, one from the Downtown Oregon City Association, one from Soulflags, and one also from Oregon City Youth Sports. So we're going to go alphabetical. We're going to ask each to make a presentation, and we'll start off with Doka.
Just wondering, have we usually done presentations for extensions?
I don't recall doing that. I think, I actually think the report was quite well written. If we just need to make public why our decision is what it is, that's one thing. But I mean, I thought that staff did a very good job on dealing with extensions, and I'm comfortable, if you're comfortable, unless it's a matter of informing the general public why, I'm comfortable with.
Well, the report is made public, so if you guys don't want to come up and say anything, we're ready to vote on it.
Yeah, I am. I am.
Anybody else?
That's okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, so go ahead, Ann. If there's anything else you need to tell us about them, like I said, the report was very thorough.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate your coming down here tonight. Thank you for being here. So do you want me to just do a roll call of the folks to approve, or we're just going to go ahead and approve? You want me to do a roll call for?
Well, we need a motion first, so I just want to know if there's anything else you wanted to add to your report that we've received.
I don't have anything additional to add.
Okay, all right, I guess we're ready for a motion then.
Waiting on you, sir.
Actually, I was curious if any individual sitting here wanted to comment on it prior to the motion, but if we have none.
Yeah, so I asked if anybody had any, does anybody on the committee have questions of staff about the extensions? Okay, well, it doesn't sound like it. All right, so we are ready for a motion.
In that case, I would move that we approve the extensions as submitted.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and now you can do the roll call. So you're not moving the camera around, I see. That's okay, we don't have to be on camera, but maybe people want to.
They see enough of me, I don't need to be on camera.
So go ahead and do the roll call.
All righty. Let's see. Let's do them alphabetically. Corey Ellis,
Absent.
Remember, she's not here.
Lori Wilson,
I approve.
Commissioner Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner McGriff.
I'm last.
I'm still learning some of the protocol.
That's typical. Yeah.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner McGriff.
Aye. So thank you, everybody. We've extended your applications. Go forth and do fantastically great work, and we appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. So we'll look forward to your closeout reports. All right. You're so welcome. We know that there were extenuating circumstances that were beyond everyone's control, and that's what happens. All right, so we are ready to go into item number 4, review and discussion of the grant proposals. And we have applicant presentations and committee review of grant proposals. So we do have, first on the list, the Downtown Oregon City Association, and I will ask for any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts.
Yes, she's gonna do it.
Lori,
I do not.
Adam,
No.
Frank,
I have none. I have a procedural question when you're done with the roll.
Rocky?
Okay, no.
Yep, okay. And just for the record, I am on the board representing the city of Oregon City, on the Downtown Association Board. And I did not have anything to do with this grant application. So I feel that I'm going to be able to vote and score this appropriately. So do you guys want to come on up? And I don't know where the camera is, but for the record, just say what your names are, and we'll go from there. And you can sit down
Oh, cool.
and make sure those little red dots are on, otherwise you won't get picked up. Oh, yes, we are very professional.
I'm Marcy Jory with Downtown Oregon City Association.
And I'm Kelly Upkeys, current board president of the Downtown Oregon City Association. First of all, thank you all for being here for such a beautiful first day of summer. Good to see the sunshine, finally. So we're here asking for additional funding for our Light Up Downtown project for phase 2. As you know, we do have a request in for an extension, but we're wanting to push forward as far as we can with the whole project. And once we get those logistical things tackled out with Public Works, I'm sure we'll be ready to go. And be kind to me, this is usually Liz's gig, so if you have questions.
We're informal here.
So we are working currently with Public Works to combat some of the engineering decisions or obstacles, and ZCS Engineering has offered to support the design phase. They're gifting us their design work. The lighting project positively impacts safety, revenue, and the beautification of the downtown area. When we did the tree lighting in the past, the retailers that reported to us did see a 15% increase in their sales revenue, just due to the awareness, the lights, the safety aspect. And as you know, with this past couple of years, we've seen more things taking place downtown. So lighting up more blocks, making it a safer zone for people to do their shopping, dining, professional service, interactions. This also helps with our clean team. As you know, we fund a 20-hour-a-week employee to go around and help clean up Main Street. Having this lighting, we find that we have less debris left after hours. So it's nice to have that as well. And, sorry, check my notes here. I think that's about it. Do you have any questions?
I do, if I may. About the engineering scope, have they granted just the engineering scope of work, or have they also gifted the project management of the construction?
That I'm not sure. I have a total of about $15,000 as their gift, but I'm not certain if it's just the engineering or if he is also going to help oversee that.
Okay.
I'd have to check with Liz and Zach.
Yeah, I think that he's planning on being a part of the project itself as well as the engineering, but he was unable to be here. He was going to try to be here tonight, but he couldn't. So it takes about $44,000 a block to do this program. And the amount for our matching funds and everything in total is the whole project. So all of downtown will be covered with this. And so this, getting both of these grants will then cover in full without any matching grants or any matching funds, 2 full blocks being completed altogether. So we just have a couple little obstacles. We do have a letter of support from Public Works in the packet that you received. And so they do support this. We just have a few little obstacles that we need to work through, like any other big project where, there's logistical things that we don't understand, but they do. And they're fully in support of this project as well. It'll make downtown very beautiful.
Are you able to highlight some of those little tiffs that you're running into with engineering?
It has to do with how they're powered.
Yeah, reliable power sources.
Okay.
Are we anchoring them to buildings and then getting property owners involved? Or are we anchoring them to existing light poles or having to input other light poles? So we have a difference of opinion kind of with what the design is at the moment. So we're working through that with them to try to see where we end up.
Sure. Options. Okay.
No, I've got a number of questions.
Right ahead.
So you've already been granted the extension of the original 50,000, of which you have expended 0, I believe, or almost 0.
0, yes, because we're
So,
still working through those logistics.
Do you have a figure that says what the additional cost due to inflation of that original 50,000 is? Is it 20,000? Is it 20%? What is it?
I think that she probably this is my understanding, that she overestimated just slightly the total cost of the project to account for that. I don't know exactly what percentage that is as far as the increase, but Liz, our executive director, feels extremely confident that the total cost of the project as listed in your packet will cover the entire project.
So how does the project you're proposing tonight differ from the original that you feel you need an additional $50,000?
Well, it costs a significantly increased amount of money than we originally had planned for or thought that it would take. And this also covers a bigger area and allows us to have to source less matching funds, which we already have a pretty big one that is, I don't know if it's completely, I think that they've committed to it, but it's through AARP. So we'll be getting some funds from them as well.
This is more phase 2, so we're planning ahead, so when we get this logistical obstacles figured out with Public Works, we can do a larger area than we did for the first phase.
Yeah, each phase.
Well, we haven't done anything in phase 1 yet.
Right.
So tell them what the scope is, what the,
99E to 10th Street.
What was the original plan?
That was the original plan, but we knew we weren't going to have enough funds to cover the full thing, so it was, I think, 2 blocks. I think the original was between 9th and 7th.
Well, I know this will be an unpopular position among those who sit with me, but I'm kind of a pay-as-you-go kind of guy, and as a project gets completed, it's like a construction perm loan. You accomplish this, you get this. I looked at, what you're asking. I don't have any figures from you that says the cost has gone up incrementally this much. I also looked at the DOCA war chest, and I'm a supporter of DOCA, so please don't get me wrong. But I'm not one to build a war chest. Your war chest, unless I misunderstood it, says you're at $221,000 today. I mean, I feel that you could accomplish the first phase of the project at the $50,000 plus some number, perhaps another 10, another 20. But I don't feel comfortable building a war chest where the money just sits there.
Right, totally.
I realize that'll be an unpopular position, but I'm going to have my say because that's who I am.
well, I don't understand what you mean by a war chest.
They have $221,000 plus they get $60,000 every biennium from the city,
Right.
which in my understanding was initially seed money to get started. Yet despite their success, we keep contributing that $60,000 every biennium. What?
It's the elevator contract.
It's not just the elevator contract.
And I respect that,
But
but
they have expanded
Wait, hang
their
on, so
duty.
when you say war, maybe war is the wrong word. Are you talking about what they have in the bank? Is that what you're talking
The
about?
number I saw was $221,000 on the report.
Yeah, I just think using the phrase war chest is not.
Okay, financial assets
I'd
available.
like to speak to that just a little bit. and I'm-
Financial assets available to you.
Absolutely. I would like to speak to that just a little bit with my limited knowledge. Keep in mind that I've only been with the association for just over, a month and a half now. And so just the little bit that I do know based on our meetings that we will be ending the year as it is now in a deficit. And so just because that money's there, it's going into events, it's going into salaries, it's going into our, administration costs and things like that. So it's not just that it's sitting there without being earmarked for something.
So how much of the funds are currently earmarked just for the lighting project? It sounds like funds are now commingled for different projects and events.
again, I can't answer that straight up. I'd have to consult with either our financial, Ray.
So how much money right now in our accounts is just for the lighting projects? Well, for sure, if we have that 50,000, which I'm sure we do, then that's, that money for sure is. In addition to that, I'm not exactly sure, but I could get back to you with that. Absolutely.
It says on the application, you guys have matching in-kind funds. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, the assumption was that those funds were for this particular project.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how much of that money that's in there. You might know more than me. Are those funds? I'm not privy to that information, but I do know that those are funds that are either coming in or maybe have come in.
And I apologize, like I said, I wasn't prepared for those questions, or I would have brought financials, so I don't want to just speak. I know Liz has worked on some other grant money to work in combination with this as well to help us get there. And then we do have, like I said, Zach's donation of his time and drawings and things.
Okay, then I guess as far as the follow-up question for the electrical power option, how are you all planning to resolve that issue? Because I assume tying into local businesses will financially impact those
Right,
businesses.
not literally tying the electrical into them, it was more where they would attach the lights.
Okay, so they will be metered under public utility
Yes,
meters?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's the whole thing, is kind of like, that's the question, the logistics that we're moving through with Public Works, is where exactly, how exactly, all of the engineering, which is why we're so lucky to have Zach on board to help us out with this.
Are we recreating that which was destroyed by the ice storm?
We are improving that which was destroyed by the ice storm, for
How do you
sure.
make it more bulletproof? Why should we do what we did before only to have it potentially destroyed again?
Well, it won't be attached to the trees, for one.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's going to help a lot. And these are more sustainable, from my understanding, a little bit more difficult to break. But that's just, again, my understanding of
They're
where we're
more
ordering.
energy efficient. They also have the capability of changing colors with the seasons.
It will enhance downtown significantly as far as the looks and the invitation, the feeling of invitation of downtown. And even just the fact that it raises, having lit trees around a business, increase their revenue by 15%. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So if you can imagine that the entire road has some sort of a light project around it, how much that would positively impact the businesses there. It's just an extremely expensive and detailed project, especially now with all the engineering stuff. So again, we're very lucky to have community members like ZCS Engineering who are willing to help us and support our project.
And I think it's a showpiece for a project for the city as well, because this downtown is our community, right? It's where people go. It's something that shows well as a completed project.
And also to speak to the, pay as you go, I completely get that, I understand that. But also a project like this, the more you can do at once, the less of a cost you're gonna have, because you're able to get more done at one time. You're not gonna have to pay more people to come back as often.
I don't argue with that.
Yeah.
Lori, what I was going to tell you is that the way that the trees were lit before, some of them were outletted through the city's light standards. And unfortunately, they would, anytime it rained, they would short out. It was kind of crazy. So it's unfortunate that when we did the Main Street work after the bridge was closed, that there was not enough thought to put in electrical conduit in the sidewalk. We redid everything and tore up the street, tore up the sidewalks, and it just didn't happen. So the way that they were doing it before, and the way they've been doing it when Jonathan was there, the previous Main Street managers, that some of them were coming off of buildings, some of them were coming off of light poles, and it was,
Kind of a mess.
well, it was a mess, and it was also kind of dangerous. And maybe the ice storm was a godsend that took most of that stuff out, because it's not operable right now.
You got a question?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for being here. I'm really excited to see how this turns out. In fact, I was just at a wedding this last weekend, and I've learned that any family function turns into a session where they have a personal conduit with their city commissioner as well. And they were talking to me about the lack of lighting down there right now. And so I just wanted to clarify. So you were saying that in the original grant that we awarded last year, which is yet to be expended, the original plan was to go from 99 to 10th?
That's the overall plan, yes. So I think the
The original was just 7th. 8th, and 9th, I think.
It was 7th to 9th.
Okay.
Our overall plan is, yes, to go from 99 to 10.
Okay, and that's
So
what
we're
this
extending
second
the
one
blocks.
would.
You're
And
talking
then we
about
would've-
McLaughlin Boulevard at the
The
mill
mill.
to 10?
I don't think we'll cross over 99, no, so
No,
we
we're
started
talking
right
about
from it,
on
yeah.
this side, which is basically that's.
And 7th is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as logistics go with
So
that.
this additional funding would go to do that complete section then, instead of just 17?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So it's save costs in the long run. I know that sitting on it does kind of, it's mostly because of the logistical issues that we've ran into as far as engineering goes. So with that being underway, it should help us to get started. And I believe that the idea is that we really get this going by November 2022.
Also, I understand from the report that the executive director submitted that there has been, well, Public Works has been a little busy.
Yes, they've been extremely
honest
busy.
with you.
Yes.
So I know that that has a lot to do with it. Commissioner
Well,
Smith,
and none of us
That's all I
are,
wanted to say. It's a public works issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
All right.
listening.
All right, and next we have the Friends of the, you don't have the, are you keeping track of the time? Because I noticed the little timer thingy's not sitting there, but I'm keeping track as well. So Friends of the Ermatinger House. Oh, yes, and for the record, Counselor Christine Lewis is here. So do we have any conflicts, ex parte, or anything you want to declare about this particular application? Go ahead, just speak.
So I already stated that I will not be ranking grants, mainly because of this project. This project is with the Ermatinger House, Friends of the Ermatinger House, which I work very closely with and have for many years. Also, I do believe that I may be interviewed in this project. I will not be getting any monetary benefits from this project, but I feel that I shouldn't participate in the ranking because of the connections that I might have with this project in the future. I was told by all of our staff that I was able to rank the other projects if I felt comfortable. I do not feel comfortable, so I will not be ranking the other projects either.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Are you asking about conflicts?
Yes.
I have none, and I will be curious at what point we hear Commissioner Smith's reasoning for not ranking whatsoever, perhaps at the end of these
Yes.
rankings.
Well, I just stated it. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Lori?
I don't have any conflicts.
Mr. Morrow?
Nope.
I don't have any conflicts, but obviously this is a small town and I know, we know people in town and obviously I'm aware of the applicants. Counselor Lewis? Nope.
same, no conflicts, no ex parte contact. Again, I will echo, it's a small part of the region and I do know some of the individuals involved, but no conversations about these grants.
Okay. All right, so you have 4 minutes.
Well, thank you for having us here. My name is Dave McCloskey. I'm on the board of directors for the Friends of the Ermatinger House. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to present history, to celebrate history, and to present the opportunities for people to take part in history through the Ermatinger House and through presentations, through Living History Organization, we have been involved in the House. I personally have been involved in the House for 30 years. So I'd like to introduce Ray Gordon, who's going to be talking about this project that the Friends of the Ermatinger are supporting.
First off, and thank you, Dave. First off, I want to thank James and Metro and Ann and all the team for making this opportunity for the community. First, I want to say that I came to get to know the Ermatinger House a little bit more through the passionate people involved in protecting it and doing that stuff. And through that excitement, it made me decide to do this project. I had this project before, which was to go into a historic site and be able to have 3 different things on it, which is when I pitch stories, I come from a pitching a story background to HGTV and publications and stuff. And I always find that when you pitch a story, it's good to have at least 3 different hooks in the water, right? So for this one, the number one is that it's a historic site and you want to celebrate its past, promote its present, and ensure its future. And how do you do that? You get people interested in it and interested in that story like I became interested in it. Another thing is there are potential ghosts among us, right? So that's a second thing, a second hook. Another is music from the time period. So my idea was to go into a historic building, do some music from the time period, do some connection with the spirits, but also interview people that know about the building. And a gentleman by the name of William Becker said, why don't you do Ermatinger House? And I went, oh. And then I saw more and more that if I picked Ermatinger, if this is a one-off, which it could be, you never know if it's going to be a series. If it's a series, you have other places in Oregon City that could be promoted. So my thought was that this would be a one-off, that it could stand alone and be a great showcase piece for Oregon City. And a lot of the money is going towards the video, and this is why, because it's more important that the person edits it in such a way that it brings in the viewer. Another thing is that it would promote the area, build partnerships, and increase funding for the Ermatinger House. And the way it builds partnerships is you have video interns, you have Willamette Falls Television, you have Oregon Media Production Association, as well as the Oregon Film and Video Office. So you're building these partnerships through this program or through this project. Another thing is you can promote the area, and I just want to point out that
You have 1 minute left.
Oh.
You're right, I did not do thank you,
Oh, no worries.
Commissioner, for
I
reminding me
get
to do the time function. I did not do it with DOCA, but you have 1 minute remaining.
Oh, okay, I'll do this really fast. Okay, so when you look in the Oregon City 2019 to 2021 goals and priorities, this actually hits two of them. One, is that my breathing doing that? I'm hearing a noise and I don't know if it's, am I breathing that loud? Okay, I'm just saying. I thought somebody was having trouble behind me and I realized it was me. So it hits goal 3, which is enhance the livability of the community, which includes Ermatinger House. The funds would help with the strategic partnerships and stakeholders to do operation and maintenance, as well as it does work with the tourism plan and economic development and get visitors into the area. And also I want to point out real quick that the Little People Big World started as an idea like this. And they were very, very popular, and they brought lots of economic opportunity into North Plains. So there you go.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I'd actually like to go first on this one.
Oh, please, go right ahead.
What I find amazing about it, every year we do this, and every year we see the shortcomings of the scoring system. And actually in scoring this, it doesn't score real high, quite honestly, but the benefits are exactly what you said. So don't live in fear of me. I'm actually supportive of this. I like what you said. I see it as a series of things, not just a standalone. I mean, we've been pushing economic and tourism development to promote this city. And I see this type of thing going through a series through our other properties, almost like the benefits of concerts in the park does. I mean, expose this city. And quite honestly, I don't know why you have to be here asking for money when I think it ought to be in the economic development budget.
Hey.
And I didn't stutter when I said it. So I like the idea of showcasing properties, not only yours. I guess that's the long and short of it. I don't like this. You know, I heard what Commissioner Smith said about he's uncomfortable with the scoring. So am I. But it's what I have to work with, and I scored it, and I don't like the outcome. But that may be neither here nor there for tonight.
And could I preface that? I mean, not preface, but go on to that, what you said. So my goal is to make it a series, but the way that I want to have it filmed is that if it didn't get picked up by History Channel, which is my goal, is that it could be a standalone piece, so that that the money did go to something that's going to be viable and continue to support Ermatinger and the whole Oregon City. Also, I will not be making any money on this. And then also I added admin for a project coordinator, which won't be me. So all money would go back to the Friends of Ermatinger House, which would then benefit the Ermatinger House.
By the way, she's a member of the Ermatinger.
I got excited about this
Yeah,
these group of people, and
So we're really lucky to have her.
And also I wanted to say that when I found out about how it had been in disrepair and people saved it, it goes to show you that that's one of the ways that you build partnerships. And it's not only getting visitors to come to the area because they saw it on History Channel or they saw it in a series, but also having residents like me. I'm an example of finding out about Ermatinger House and going, wow, I didn't know that. And I used to be in tourism. So I'm just saying that, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, there's an opportunity to also grow the interest in and the funds you make on renting it out to local residents.
Well, I frequently use this phrase in many meetings, and I say you have to set the table before you invite your guests there.
Right.
And we need to set the table, and this is a good first step, and I hope it carries on to our other offerings because it can't be a one-off. It has to be, it's our total offering. So thank you for seizing the initiative and being a driving force in this.
Thank you.
Lewis?
Great, thanks so much. In reviewing your application, I see you have students listed as a source of support, but I'm not seeing a narrative that describes how you're identifying these students, where they're coming from, and what part of production they'll be part of.
There's I know that the Willamette Falls TV work with some interns from colleges, so I would reach out to them to reach out to their folks. Also, the Oregon Media Production Association is a great association in the Portland metro area, and they also include, some outreach. And then the Oregon Film and Video Office is really strong in a leader in film in the area, and I know that they also could reach out. So as soon as we get the money to be able to promote and to also put together these, further put together the roles, which, are production, like regular, like production assistants and gaffers and stuff like that, but.
And we have a history
you'll
of.
present an internship to a wide group and see who comes forward.
Yeah, so that's also something too that I put under building partnerships. So thinking about this of thinking way broader is what partnerships can you build? You can build them across so much, and I would use those partnerships to get it out there.
Great, thanks.
That these roles are available.
One of the things that got me excited in this, I was on the board of directors for the Aurora Colony back in the 1980s and early 90s, and I was participating in the Stauffer Farm program. They brought in children from all over the area into their farm program, and so with the Friends of the Ermatinger House, although we haven't focused on trying to get students in, there are a lot of kids that are actually participating in the past events that we've had that I'm sure would be really interested in being involved in supporting this as well.
I'm going to cut the responses down to just answering the questions because we still have a whole bunch of other people.
Okay, sorry.
Commissioner Morrow?
Thank you. So the goal is to get this on the History Channel, right?
Yeah.
So what is the process of doing that, and what is the experience that the team has in doing something like that?
So I have a long background with pitching stories to Oregon Home, and I was in the publications business, but we also did HGTV. So I was very successful in pitching stories. So basically having the one off or the first of the series in the bag is really important to show them what it could be, that it promotes the place. It also promotes the heritage organization behind it, as well as any spirits and also the history around the area. So, that is, so that in the bag, and then along with a pitch, like a story and what it could be if they decide to pick up some more episodes.
And then if it were not to be picked up, you were saying briefly, could you talk about what that would look like?
So if it doesn't get picked up, the way I want it to be directed and to be put together is that it could be a one-off, that it was not for nothing, so that it wouldn't be filmed in a way like, well, look at our next episode. It would just be everyone would be all about the place and the people around it that support it and help its future and support its past. So that's why it would be filmed like a one-off, just in case that happened.
But if it were not to be aired, what would
Oh, I'm sorry. So it would be aired in as many places. It would be shared on cable channels.
Okay.
And so it would be pitched to a lot of places. But as a series, my hope is that it would lead to a series like we could do McLaughlin House and
Right,
other places.
right.
But it would still have airtime.
So you would find other places. Okay, thank you.
Perhaps they'd sell it to our Economic Development and Tourism Program.
Do you have any questions, Lori? I do not. All right, I guess we're back to me. So I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. I don't think this is quite a metro enhancement project, but I see this as a tourism project, bringing in all the historic houses and doing this as a series. And I would like to strongly recommend that we look into that and do that, because I think this has value. If you're talking about doing production that it gets on the History Channel or HGTV, to me, that is totally tourism. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of how it needs to meet the criteria for the Metro project.
Yeah, and it does. And the fact that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that it doesn't quite get there for me. I know what you're trying to do. To me, this is an economic development. This is a kind of almost in a way an arts treasure trove showcase, which ties the arts and historic preservation together under the economic development program. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the city goals, but that's not part of the criteria for the Metro Enhancement Grant. The criteria is very narrow. So does anybody have anything else?
I'd just say it reflects the limitations of the criteria.
Well, it's.
But that's what we have to work with.
Right, the Metro Enhancement Grant is very specific about what we're doing with it.
I know.
And that's,
My final comment is, in today's world with gas above $5 and airfares above 1,000, the term staycation has come into being. And here's an opportunity for a staycation right here.
Right.
Thanks.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, so we have Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. Looks like that might be, Mr. Neely, are you coming up as well? Oh, okay. Mr. Neely, we all want you, so, you're a wanted man.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tom Gaskill, and I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. Hello, councilors. Hello, Commissioner. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and present to you our proposal to conduct riparian restoration work in a couple of different locations in Oregon City. This is a little bit of a continuation of the work that we did in the last year with a little bit of a different twist. So I'll dig into that now, and then I'm going to come back around to the end and talk about what we've been doing. So the first project that we'll be focused on here, we've been working real hard on one bank of Abernathy Creek and looking across the bank to the other bank along Washington Street. And if you've traveled that at all by foot or even driving, you might notice it's heavily infested with blackberry and other invasive species, and there's very little native vegetation there. So what we would like to do is work on that bank. It's a very steep bank, and so it's going to take some technical expertise to work there. We do have contractors that we've worked with in the past on riparian restoration in more technical settings like this. So that's a part of this proposal. And we're partnered with Public Works on this because Public Works has been supportive with us on Abernathy Creek, what we call the Abernathy Shade Project. And we've been working with landowners in the urban growth boundary, but outside the city limits. So an element of this would actually be to work within the city limits with some additional landowners, provided they're interested in working with us. And I'll talk about that if you have questions about that later on. The second site is Singer Creek Park. And Singer Creek Park is one that we were interested in tackling when I first started with the program, but I wasn't sure exactly how to get in there. Honestly, the ice storm had done a lot of damage. I was working with Jonathan Waverly, and he said, Tom, give us a little time to kind of clear it up, and then let's talk about it. So Singer Creek Park will be the focus of a lot of our public engagement efforts. Singer Creek, the riparian habitat along Singer Creek is shaded, but a lot of that shading is invasive species again. So our goal there would really be to focus on public outreach, public engagement with some of the plantings, and removal of the invasives. And then the third element is really back to Abernathy Creek Park proper, where we've been working this year. So the weeds don't stop growing. And this year they've grown extraordinarily well. They've been watered nicely, and it overwhelmed a lot of the native plants that we've been planting there over the past couple of years. And so we know two things. One is that rain will stop. Maybe today was that day. Summer will begin and things will begin to dry out. And so it's important to us that what we have already planted be maintained. So getting some watering going on in there to keep those plants, let them thrive. And
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And then to continue with maintenance of the trail that we put in there, potentially extending it to where we see we would like to go with it if funding will allow. So finally, just kind of wrapping up, if you want to see the work that we've been doing, this Thursday at 5 o'clock, we're having an open house at the Abernathy Creek Park. It's just down the street from our office. So when I met with you last year, I didn't have an office, and now we have one in the Kruger House. Very excited. Prior to that, it was the picnic table at Abernathy Creek Park. So I'll be there along with our two AmeriCorps members who really are the engine that's helped me to move along on this. And then Saturday morning, we have a bio blitz up at the Environmental Learning Center at Clackamas Community College from 8 to noon. And I'd love to see you out there. We'll be leading tours on the hour to learn about the biology up at the Environmental Learning Center.
So just for the record, because some people don't know where Abernathy Creek Park is, would you tell them it's at the end of John Adams Street? So.
Yeah, so the best way to get there, if you were to drive down or walk down Washington Street, make a right and you'll see the Kruger House right there where our office is. And then John Adams Street is the little street that pokes in, and at the end of that is Abernathy Creek Park. And it is a park that was established because of a flood in 1996. And if you want to really see what Abernathy Creek can do, wait for a week of rain and then come down to the park and have a look. And you can see a creek that goes from just barely over the rocks to really up into the floodplain. And we kept our trail well out of that floodplain. So
some of us are familiar with the families that sold their properties to make that possible. So they have been nicely relocated, but they're glad to be out of the flood.
Well, good, and I hope that they are willing to come back and at least have a look. We're trying to make it a beautiful place.
Any questions?
Yeah, the park that has this very steep slope, you said you were working with a contractor. Is that going to require engineering or just some, like, what does that entail to make it safe?
So the way Abernathy Creek works, it's a very flashy creek. So that means at high flows, it floods and it comes up and it creates these kind of terraces. Right now, those terraces are obscured by the blackberry. The blackberry just wants to grow. And so it's hard for us to really get a sense for what's over there until we start to work with it. I don't believe it will require engineering, but it may require securing individuals to good stanchions up on the street and getting them down to the edge in order to put in the plantings. But our goal
And
is
are
to
these
really...
the AmeriCorps volunteers will be?
The
passing over the
AmeriCorps
side?
volunteers will not
Okay.
likely be doing that work. No, this would be under contract with individuals that we can ask for insurance from. Although we do carry our own insurance for the AmeriCorps members.
Any other questions?
So these are all licensed contractors. There's no volunteer organizations or youth organizations involved.
So only for that part of things. So everything else would be youth volunteers, community volunteers, our AmeriCorps volunteers. Myself, Doug is actually a frequent fixture out there pulling. So only for the parts where we would be working in a steep embankment and we would need their help. Generally, we've been very successful, in fact, working with Rivers of Life Center and their teams are a licensed contractor that we have worked with, but not in a steep location like this.
Are they a component of this program, Rivers of Life?
Not currently at this time. They were in our previous grant.
Last
They are
year.
in our- Last year,
They
correct.
may be in the future in this one.
If Jerry has the bandwidth, if his team has the bandwidth and wants to continue working with us, we'd certainly entertain an opportunity to work with them.
Jerry gets in every year, whether it's a primary as a providing vendor in a secondary position.
His team planted the plants at Abernathy Creek Park and up at the Environmental Learning
Understand.
Center. Yep, just beautiful. And I would just say on the plantings too, we are using climate migration strategies. So we're bringing in plants that are more likely to succeed, such as white alder instead of red alder, incense cedar, in conditions where we don't think western red cedar would succeed.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Hannah Grace Family Foundation. We are opening the doors to let some air in because people seem to be warm, and I'm watching this gentleman in the front row, and his face is getting redder and redder, which was concerning to me. So. So just introduce yourselves and you can get started.
Good morning, or afternoon, evening.
It's morning somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah, you'll need to pull the mic down, and the red light is on over there.
It is.
Okay.
Yes. My name is Tara Hood, and this is my husband, Jason Hood.
Get a
We're the
little closer.
co-founders of Hannah Grace Family, and our treasurer, Ed DeWald's in the back of us, and he will answer any financial questions too, that will switch if needs to be.
We were here last year, though, in Zoom, and got a grant to start what we proposed to you just as a theory in providing music lessons to underprivileged kids within the community, many of them foster kids in the process of being adopted, having been through all sorts of different traumas that nobody wants to even think about or describe. And we work with kids that often have nobody really to champion their cause, because they don't want to stand up and yell, here's what I've been through, and just allow themselves to be made fun of or exploited even further. So we're reaching out to a group of kids often that just go unnoticed, that often don't have somebody to look out for them. Sometimes there's someone with the government that has their case, amongst many. And often there's a foster parent, sometimes going back and forth between biological parents. But they're going through so many traumas and insecurities and instability within their life without somebody often to really call family. And that's really what we're trying to do is be like family amongst the volunteers that we have. And the music lessons are just something to add value to the lives of these kids. There's so many studies with the increase in scores at school, in social benefits to it. But with our volunteers investing in these kids and the lessons that they're getting, I think is just a huge benefit to these kids, and trying to add some stability to their life. One of the things that we often talk about as an organization is redefining the value of each child, because there's nothing wrong with these kids. In most instances, they've been through things that they've really have no responsibility in. Something's happened to them. Sometimes it's a parent that's died. It's divorce, it's abandonment, all sorts of things, addiction within the family. And yet they're the ones left to suffer the consequences of it. But someone's self-esteem is usually really based upon how others value them. And so these kids who haven't had somebody showing value in them are left with really low self-esteem. So when you have somebody in a group of people that are just showing love and encouragement and value in them and saying that your life can amount to something, and I think there's something even greater about it when the people doing that aren't getting paid to do that. They're not related, because then they're able to set aside some of what agendas might be of, well, you feel like you have to do this because you're related to me, but we're not. And we're not paid to do it. Everything that we do is from volunteers, it's from donations, it's from grants. And
You got one more minute.
so the kids get to see that, and my wife and I are kind of recipients ourselves of a couple that invested in us at a young age and just loved us. And we had to just keep asking ourselves why, because they were like 50 years older than us, and they just loved us, invited us over, always had sprinkle cake ready anytime we wanted to come over.
So how
And-
about addressing how this meets the criteria? We know the story. Your application was really very complete.
Well, it's obviously an underserved, underprivileged part of the community that we're addressing, and one that doesn't want to be addressed almost, again, because they feel shame for what they've gone through. And we need at least one healthy adult, at least one person that wants to get them to the lessons. And then we have volunteers that are like grandparents, just loving them, helping them with homework. There was a lot of this last year, especially at the beginning of year. Everybody was, especially with the kids in 2nd to 4th grade, they hadn't been in school for a year and a half. So when you're trying to learn music, you need to know the alphabet, you need to know fractions, numbers, things like that a lot of our kids did not know. So they got a lot of academic help for the necessity of the music, and obviously addressing the arts with these kids, which is therapeutic in nature. But I think that's part of bringing beauty into these lives as well as in Oregon City.
Questions, committee?
Yes, so the next portion of these funds is to grow your program. My understanding is you had about 28 students and you're looking to double that?
Yeah, we're trying to get up to at least 36, and it'll just depends upon funding. We have, we could easily be 100 kids, but it's just the funding that is necessary for it. And, there's so many kids that have gone through an awful lot, and we can hardly advertise, and the numbers are gone instantly, but trying to get up to at least 36 kids for this next year. The instruments are all purchased, checked out to them. If they complete the year of the lessons, the instruments are gifted to them. We had a graduation here 3-4 weeks ago, and part of the little kind of diploma certificate that they received, it said thanks in large part to all of our community volunteers and donors, and a grant from the City of Oregon City Metro Enhancement. That I think it's something that a lot of the people that have found out about have taken a lot of pride that there's so many people that are giving toward it, and that see that our city is taking an interest in these kids also.
Go ahead.
You mentioned in your application support of your work from attorneys in the family law practice as well as judges. Can you speak to how you're actually involved with children and youth who are somehow involved with criminal justice system?
Well, my wife and I have been foster parents for 11 years. We had a series before we started Hannah Grace we just actively tried to work with the parents and kind of invest in them, because many of them had gone through a lot of the same things that the kids had. And so just trying to love on them. And so we had like 16 kids in a row that all ended up going back to their families. So because of that, we had lawyers and one of the judges that kept approaching us and wanting us to do something more because of the success rate of what had taken place. We continue to do that, but not fostering specific. The last 2 foster kids we've had were abandoned. We adopted them. But what we do at Hannah Grace in our building's right next to Jimmy O's Pizza, and getting the kids coming in there, we still have that interaction with the parents who come in and hang out. We have food there and discussions with them, and it's, I think, therapeutic for them also in us, in our volunteers kind of being a part of their life and them becoming an extended part of our family. That for many of these people, they don't have the normal support system, which is usually a biological family, whether it's a budget, whether it's making a purchase, life decision, and they don't have somebody that they trust and know to go to help out. So either they just get it off social media or hopefully they have some better choices.
And I'm actively, and we're still actively, because we're still foster parents, we're not fostering right at this moment, just because we have 2 little kids. But I'm actively involved with the CASA, and I have, she's wonderful. She was our CASA worker for our little kids. And in some of the lawyers I'm still actively in contact with. And so that is an area where they actually promoted our music program for us. They send it out in all their emails. And so now also DHS workers, we have them sending stuff out for the kids too. So we're heavily involved within the foster care system for sure. So just because we're not actively fostering at this, this point on, but we still have connections within all that. So we have DHS visits within our building and stuff too. So we're actively involved within the foster care system. So.
Other questions?
Of those youth whom you service, are they strictly from the Oregon City area, or is it geographic concern is not a criteria?
Well, about 75-80% of them are from Oregon City.
Okay, and your referrals are made through different agencies?
Sometimes it's teachers, sometimes it's a grandparent, a DHS worker, some of it through low-cost housing,
Okay.
Mental health.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for all your work, and I can just speak to the importance of music and the arts in young children's lives, because I participated big in that all through school, all through college. And so is this continuing with, if I'm remembering correctly, when we approved it, it was for keyboards and guitars? Is that continuing to be the case?
Right.
Are there any conversations about expanding that scope? Because I know, I think those are both great instruments, but when it comes down to being able to put those into practice and being able to be a part of a larger group, like a band or an orchestra, is such an impactful thing. And I was just curious if any of those sorts of instruments that could be translated to a group setting, and I assume that there are group setting performances, as has been the case, but translated to like the school setting, and if that's been a part of the conversation.
Well, things that have been discussed for further expansion is we've had people want us to start vocal lessons, which is, it sounds really good because there's no purchasing of an instrument, it seems. So the cost, the overhead is lower. Drums is the other main thing that gets brought up all the time. You get a lot more kids that are interested in those specific instruments because there's a further application later in life, whether it's just a family get together, playing at a church, some type of community function, some type of garage backyard band. All of those things, these are kind of instruments they're usually part of those long term. And health-wise, injuries and stuff usually aren't taking away their ability to do that, like sports and some different things where self-esteem can be defined in that way. But one other area that we're looking at right now, because one of the families that is part of Hannah Grace has a big background in dance. And so that would be a completely different area.
Yeah, we're kind of getting a little bit off topic.
Yeah, that would
Sorry,
that
I'm
wouldn't be.
just trying to keep it to what we're talking about.
But I think for the financial part, I mean, the expanding into other instruments, it does cost money. And unfortunately, we're limited in that. So we have, donors and grants for that. But it's, but to expand, it takes money to get there too. So that's.
We would love to be able to do that. I mean, so it's mostly the guitar and the keyboard. You have, I think, the greatest number of kids that would have interest in those to begin with. Ukulele is another one that's been brought up. It's easier to learn to begin with than other stringed instruments.
Okay, thank you. And if you need a bassoon teacher, you can contact me.
Were you hoping we said bassoon?
You didn't know that's what he played?
I do know.
Okay. Well, my questions, excuse me, Mr. Smith.
No, I didn't have it.
Okay, so my question centers around a question that I asked last year. So the Metro Enhancement funds are to be spent within the city limits. So how in your application that you did last year, how did you document that you were serving Oregon City residents? Because I understand that people don't quite understand that the school district boundaries are beyond Oregon City, as is our zip code. And so we don't have the latitude to say you can serve 50% Oregon City residents and 75% people who are, because the Metro Enhancement money is within a certain defined boundary. So I'm just wondering how you documented that for your past grant and how you plan to document that for this grant, should you be successful.
Well, we have applications for all the kids, which shows where they're enrolled at school, what their address is. The one problem with foster kids is sometimes in the middle of the year, they're moved houses.
Sure, I understand that.
Many of our kids have been in double-digit homes. So that's the type of instability that they have. And so sometimes they're changing schools.
So my question was, how are you documenting that in your closeout reports or your reports? You're saying X many people were served and they live in Oregon. I mean, that's what I'm asking you. Did you do that, or are you going to do that?
Well, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we haven't, our program runs year round.
Right.
So, everything's been done, but we continue with lessons through the summer, and we take attendance
I'm
every
just talking about the
week.
grant cycle. That's what you're going to be reporting on. So I'm talking about how you plan to document that during the grant cycle.
We'll give percentages of all the students that are actually in. We have percentages of the attendance rates, with and without those that when it was COVID related. So
We have applications, we have our attendances, so all of those are within, it shows their addresses and with the percentages of where they live in Oregon City or if it's outside of Oregon City.
Well, I mean, I'm just,
So, yeah.
what I'm getting at, and maybe I'm being obtuse about this and you're not getting what I'm asking.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm asking, saying that you should definitely document, not in just percentages, but, you had X many students, they live in Oregon City, and you have documentation as backup so that when
Yes.
the staff is reviewing your evaluation report, your closeout report, that we have confirmation that you are serving Oregon City residents. That's what I'm getting at. So
And
if I-
perhaps you can connect with Ann on
and,
that,
yeah,
on
you
how
can
to.
connect with
Yeah.
staff on
you
that,
know,
because that was, again, that was a concern that I had last year. I think your program is great. And, if we had county enhancement money, maybe that's gonna come one of these days, that we could have a broader scope, but, we have to look at how this affects the funds that we have and where those funds come from and where we have to spend them. So that's basically what I was trying to get at. So, thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, please, no clapping, thank you. No, this is not a theater, sorry. Please don't clap.
May have been for you.
I'm just trying to help because I have reviewed these things before myself. All right, Mary Rose Foundation. And that same question will apply to you guys as well.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Heidi Blackwell. I'm a parent and an educator, and I would like to say a community connector. I'm very active in our community. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our program. We want our joint venture between the Oregon City Schools and Mary Rose Foundation, and hopefully you. It's a one-to-one mentoring program that pairs local students with adult mentors for regularly scheduled times to explore similar areas of interest. So the Mary Rose Foundation was established in 2018. It is connected to the Mary Rose Northwest Boutique, which is located here in downtown Oregon City. And the foundation originally worked on funding scholarships for individuals who struggle with eating disorders that are seeking treatment. During the pandemic, the number of applications skyrocketed, and the foundation's board decided to shift its attention towards interventions. And so that's when I came on board as the director of education with Mary Rose. Our intervention program has been successfully implemented here in Oregon City. It's a teen tween art program. It's called the Rosie Club. And we've worked with the local school district, which creating that partnership is led to the idea of how can we really serve those students that need help the most. Mary Rose Foundation is willing to allocate part of my position as the Director of Education to make the mentoring program a possibility. here in the Oregon City Schools. It would be, in my position would involve recruiting mentors, conducting interviews, assisting with matching the mentors and the mentees, conducting quarterly check-ins with those mentors and mentees, providing activities for those pairs to do together. And what we're lacking at Mary Rose is an onboarding process for volunteers. That's why we reached out to the local school district to see if they'd be interested in doing this. The school district obviously has a very thorough process for volunteers as they vet the individuals that be working with students. They require their volunteers to meet a number of local and state regulations. And then the district also has a number of systems in place to identify those students that might benefit the most from having be part of this mentor program. The possible mentors would complete an interest inventory around their skill and availability. They need to agree to meet at least twice a month with their mentees. And during the initial interview, there would be an idea of the next steps that they would need to go through to become volunteers, just volunteers overall in the schools. Same time that the mentors are being vetted, then the mentees would be identified through the school district, along with parental permission to obviously be involved in this program. We do have commitments to work with the high school. Dr. Stacy Erickson wrote a letter of support. Candace Hinken, who's the Director of Community Education, and Lisa Norman, the Director of Human Resources, has also given their approval of this program. So the mentor and the mentees at an agreed upon time would meet together on the school campus during hours that students would normally be on campus. During the initial meeting, they would decide on an activity to work on together. Up to $100 would be provided to work on projects throughout the year. The projects can meet any number of the Metro Enhancement standards, because it could be anything from improving the school grounds to enhancing some of their work skills. The scheduled and unscheduled check-ins would take place quarterly, and then everyone would be invited to an end-of-the-year party to share pictures and the projects. For the program to continue, there would need to be a coordinator or funds identified.
Time's up.
For the project.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? We'll start down at this end.
Simple question, maybe not so simple.
Yes.
How does one measure success in a program such as that?
It would be that the students would continue, that mentors would continue throughout the school year. We plan to start it by October and finish it by May.
Are you duplicating any service currently provided by the school?
There is not a mentoring program currently.
That's it for me, thanks.
And I forgot to ask if anybody had any ex parte or conflicts, so I think we have none.
I do not.
I work for the school district, but I'm not.
Again, small town. I've been to Mary Rose before, so we know lots of people. Go ahead.
So the vast majority of the funding would go toward funding the facilitator position, but you were mentioning that each mentor-mentee group would also get $100 for the year for some sort of service project.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
What the program that we created would be available for the school district or for another community group or, whatever person or organization wanted to take this program and continue with it. It would be, the intellectual property would be available publicly for anyone to use.
And then for the students, you were mentioning how the school district has certain metrics so that they can identify at-risk students. Is this like geared toward any specific type of student, or just, if there are academic issues? What's the criteria for how you're going to try and measure the at-risk students in need?
Initially, our ask was the students that might be serviced by Mary Rose, so the ones that might be struggling with low self-esteem, with body issues. I don't want to say that we would just solely focus. When we're looking at, it would be looking at who the mentors would possibly be, right? And that is going to judge on kind of what students that might possibly be served.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Nope, okay. Looks like you don't have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I guess I will ask the questions I mentioned at the beginning. Oregon City residents, the students.
We'll be working with the Oregon City schools.
Yeah, there are students that go to Oregon City High School that do not live in Oregon City. So they might live in Redland and have an Oregon City mailing address. So again, documenting how many students are served that are Oregon City residents is going to be key.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are now on to the next one. Turn my papers in here.
Rivers of Life.
Yep. So we have Rivers of Life.
Hello.
And I was getting worried because your face, like I said, is awfully red. That's why I was worried it was too hot in here.
Is this thing supposed to be flashing red if it's working?
Yes. Yes.
Is it working from what you can tell?
So far.
Okay, fine, thank you. I don't know that I need these, but I'm willing to take any advantage to be able to speak with you well. I'm Jerry Herman. This is Eric Gibson. I'm transitioning a lot of our organization to Eric's management because, one, I'm getting older. Two, Eric has a degree in horticulture from Clackamas Community College, and he has a desire to work with disadvantaged people because of his additional training and degree work in mental health counseling and also social services, which he's completing at Clackamas. You have a grant before you, which I believe you had pictures. Did you see the pictures that we sent of 4 different sites?
One more second.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure
Jerry,
that
hang on
you saw
one
those.
second. I forgot to ask. Ex parte.
No ex parte.
No.
One of the sites that is being proposed for this project is a site that I volunteer at. So I'm just declaring that. I'm treasurer for the Rose Farm Management Committee, which is a part of the McLaughlin Memorial Association.
I'm on the Clackamas Heritage Partners Board.
So the 4 sites that we were proposing to deal with are sites that were affected, not so much Rose Farm and the Holmes, Governor Holmes facility, were affected by the heat dome of last year. Remember last year, about 3 weeks ago, 118 degrees? And then 6 months before that, a major ice storm that really caused a lot of damage in a number of areas. The 3 areas that received the worst damage were end of the Oregon Trail and the new outdoor Oregon Trail experience that we built for Gail Yosselino and her people with one of your Metro grants some time ago. And that suffered a lot of native plant damage, mainly because of the huge amount of ice fall that occurred, and then the heat came on top of it. And the other site was Clackamas Community College, as the folks from Greater Oregon City Watershed Council mentioned. Yes, we planted 1,000 plants at 2 different sites that we grew. Behind you are 4 or 5 youth that have just got done working on 10,000 plants at our nursery out in Canby that we grow. We grow our own plants. They can learn the whole process and how to maintain them and so forth. So those plants were used at the Oregon Trail, Clackamas Community College last year, but now what we're proposing to do at the college this year is to take areas that Metro could not fund originally in their grant of about 3 years ago, trails that never got attention, and an area where the Oregon Trail pageant was held, which was a beautiful outdoor event, some of you might remember, get the whole thing looking complete. It needs to look complete, and it's not quite complete. That would involve additional plantings and also trail work and things of that nature. At the end of the Oregon Trail, we're going to install a drip irrigation system with John Waverly's blessings and also Kendall Reed's. They both agreed. A drip irrigation system will save water and it'll save plants. So that's what we're going to do there, as well as redo all the plantings that died because of the heat dome and the ice events, which people don't realize how damaging that was to the ecology of our area. Okay, then at the other 2 sites, the Museum of the Oregon Territory, run by the Clackamas County Historical Society, we've gone through in the past and redone a lot of the landscape, but the hillside is 6,000 feet of weeds that you see from 1990, and it's now 5 feet tall, and it could catch fire this year because it's grown so much. In the past, we tried to keep it weed-eated, but we are intending this time, with their blessings, to convert it to native landscape that doesn't need irrigation. We're talking about the toughest of tough plants.
You have 1 minute left.
All right, and that's our
1
intention.
minute. 1
Okay,
minute.
and the last site on the agenda, what did I miss here?
Nothing. You can cut it to me.
Well, the last site.
Jerry, he said he's cutting to you.
Go ahead, Jerry, if you like.
That's right. The last of the sites, 2 two museums, three museums, homes, Governor Holmes property. There's a bunch of areas around buildings that are very important landscape elements that have never been able to quite get the attention that they need. And so we're going to try to really dress up all the grounds there so it entirely works. Everything we're using is recycled materials to make things. Everything we're taking from the landscape, we're going to co-compost on property down by Clackamas Cove with the wood debris you still have down there that's been ground up by the folks with Public Works. We're going to co-compost those wastes and then put them back into final applications. So we will employ about 40 people this coming year. And this gentleman.
All right, that's great. So we have Rashad, Will, Thomas, and Ryan behind us. They're ROTC kids from Oregon City High School, and they're working with us. So they're going to 15, 16-year-old kids and our teenagers, excuse me. So it's a great thing, and it's a fun time. It's all about working with these guys. So we do work in landscaping, and then it's we're doing this service for human services. So it's going to be a lot of interesting things going on with Jerry and developing. We'll see how it goes.
Any questions?
Start with you, Christine.
None. I have one. So it's quite an ambitious slate you've got this year. Do you intend on completing all these projects this year with the help of the youth?
Yes, absolutely. When we take on these projects on an annual basis, we always complete our grants, and we will have every one of those sites up to snuff and visitor ready.
It's a lot of work, gentlemen.
Yes, I'd also like to add that so the capabilities of this in the future is to serve, everything in Oregon City. So Willamette Fall Studio has been around forever. We can help the Ermatinger, and you've seen they had the Oregon City Watershed Council already, so that was cool. I didn't know that, but yeah, it makes sense. So these guys, Willamette Rivers of Life, can eventually serve all kinds of stuff in landscape maintenance. So integration.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Morrow? Commissioner Smith? Commissioner O'Donnell?
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
Nice
you
to
so
meet
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you, yes. All right, Willamette Falls TV Studio. Ladies.
I'll finish this one up.
I was on wheels.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melody Ashford. I'm the Executive Director of Willamette Falls Studios.
I'm Shelley Ostrowski. I'm the Executive Assistant.
So the grant we're applying for, we've been working on what's fondly known as the Art Barn for some time. Actually, this year, it's 100 years old. I'm assuming it started being built in 1920, but when I looked up the building itself, the first yearbook I found that said new gym was 1922. So we've been restoring it, and we've had some grants through the Metro grant prior that has really helped us with the windows and the patio. And so we've been kind of chipping away at each space, building the studio. And so the last space we had to conquer is, or enhance, I shouldn't say conquer. It's been a little good conquering though, let me tell you, is the lower level. There's about 1,600 square feet. So upstairs we have a studio kitchen. We have a full green screen type studio. We have a podcast room. And then there's really been a call for enhancing music recording. And so the last space is a music recording space. And so we've got grant money that we've been working on that. We put $78,000 into it this year. But I thought we kind of had an ADA ramp in there, but that's my ignorance of, like, it has to have a platform of 5x5. So there's double doors on 11th Street, but it kind of goes wonky when you go out the door where people will tip over. I've tipped equipment over there. So what we're doing is we're wanting to put in a cement ramp there that will come in and then make the lower level fully ADA accessible. We have enhanced the bathroom down there, which is I think there must have been little people in there at one time because everything was really small. Like young
children,
people, like young children.
Yes.
Children,
Yeah. We want to correct that, yeah.
Children.
That's a fond term, just a term of fondness.
Yes, it is. They're like, children, because everything was really small and low and so forth. So we've enhanced that for an ADA bathroom. We feel it meets your grant criterias for enhancement with just the building itself. I think think it's a very iconic building that we've kept up. And then in addition to allowing for more cultural growth, music, as you know, is a international language, so we're hoping to have a lot more diversity of different types of people that may be more interested in the music realms than prior to like just producing videos and so forth. What else?
There are no other professional recording studios in our area. You have to go into downtown Portland. There is a house like in Beaver Creek that I've heard about, but I can't find it anywhere. So it is a place that, I mean, unless you're in college or in school, you don't have a place to go to get a recording studio. And we'd love to invite Hannah Grace's Family Foundation to come in and record there, because we also have a music voiceover booth as well.
Right. And we see how this can really tie into some of the other programs that have already spoke, the new studio. But again, there's the accessibility of really bringing equipment in and out, and then the ADA of people that are challenged for that kind of a space coming in with rolling things. So that's basically it.
You're looking at me look pretty hard.
I don't know.
I'm just curious if bassoon players are excluded.
Yeah, it'll be equipped with congas. That's my donation.
I guess I have a question. Have you had your ADA ramp engineered?
Yes.
Yes, and
Island Architects.
okay. And I'm not familiar with your space, so forgive me, but are you multiple floors? Do you have an elevator? What kind of other constraints could there be?
Well, we have a ramp to the front main entry, and we have a loft. We have a loft. Really, there's only one place that's not accessible.
Okay.
But it's also not necessary. It's a kind of like just a meeting space. It's not like a recording space or an editing space. So all of those areas have ADA accessibility, except the lower level.
Okay. I know with old buildings, they weren't exactly thinking about that, so thought I'd ask what kind of can of worms we're opening up.
Well, they carried everybody.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you. I know you've been really stewarding an old building, and there's a number of components. I'm curious, you've listed what looks like a PGE grant as part of your in-kind for HVAC. How is HVAC connected to the ramp project? Or is it?
Well, it's the studio project as a whole. We were trying to show you this is like, we don't just need the ramp, it's the ramp that supports the whole studio.
Right.
So all of those other pieces of it are the studio project as well.
Okay.
The whole studio project is about $114,000. So this is just the end. That PEG grant that we were getting, that's actually what caused us to be here, because that was decreased by 20% once we started this project. And so we've been finding additional sources of income to finish the project. And so this is the ending.
Some of the funding we get for, well, most all of the funding we get for equipment and so forth comes from cable companies, what's called PEG fees, Public Education and Government. It's a $1 line item. But cable companies are closing and going to streaming services. Therefore, our funding for equipment is going away. So we're finding new ways to do it. But again, with the ramp, it's kind of, if you build it, will they come? Well, they'll come if they can get in. So it's really working on the interior part. And to your question of Oregon City residents, we have a process to become a producer, which they fill out all their information for residential. And then anybody that comes into the studio, we have a sign in for, like, a lot of times there'll be people that come in that,
Like me.
yes, that come in to participate, but they're not a registered producer because they haven't taken the classes. But they'll come in as guests on people's shows. But all of that is documented, and there's sign in and sign out, so we know where everybody comes from.
We report on that yearly.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
Just a curiosity, does the school district have no further affiliation or ownership rights with that
They
building?
own it.
They own the building and we lease it.
You lease from
And
them.
we actually, just this last year, Case started a new multimedia program this last January. So we're actually giving regular classes Monday through Thursday, twice a day with the Case kids that are learning media production now.
Very good, thanks.
Well, I think two things that I have appreciated about the work that you've done over the years is that the gymnasium is a very significant building in the McLaughlin Conservation District, and you guys have done a really good job on making sure that all of your improvements meet city's historic review standards. And obviously hiring Mr. Island is going to get you there as well, since he knows that code backwards and forwards. So I know that I don't have any concerns about whether the ADA ramp will meet the city's standards, because I know the quality of work that Mr. Island does, and it'll be good. I think that the thing that as you stated, is that the ramp that is there really isn't, and if we're talking about trying to accommodate people from all walks of life, including disabilities, that your goal in making this building more accessible is one that's really a good one, because as we've already heard, music is a gateway to other things for people. So it's, I think that, you know, what you're proposing is reasonable, and we'll, you know, I'm sure we'll look forward to seeing it go through historic review. So any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to call for a short recess, and we will come back at, get here. So let's come back at 7:50. Just take a break, stretch, and people can go to the restroom, and then we'll get to it. We're way ahead of schedule, so thank you, everybody. It's great. And we never did figure out who this is on the phone. I'm supposed to wave this so he can see me.
I'll give him a knock.
I got a thumbs up.
Yeah, he's
All
good.
right, so we're gonna call ourselves back into session. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm sure we all needed that little stretch break. So I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Zook, and we're gonna be in discussion about deliberations. So you're gonna pull up your fabulous Excel spreadsheet, I presume?
I can, although
Or is it fabulous? I don't know.
well, I am missing 2 responses, and I think I've just got 1, so I can hand enter that.
Okay, you wanna do that while we,
I can certainly, I wanted to come back in a regular meeting and ask if, I think, Adam, do you still have your scores?
I have it right in front of me and I have.
Did you put them in the Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, they're in the spreadsheet right now.
to get it.
Okay, no, it's okay. As long as you put it in that spreadsheet, I got it.
Okay.
It's the government after all.
Okay, so you have how many responses?
As in it's efficient?
As in we know. I just need to hand enter this one.
He's joking for the record.
Yeah, sorry. I just need to enter Commissioner Lewis's into the spreadsheet. Give me 1 minute and I'll do that.
Why don't you do that?
Maybe we can have the bassoon solo.
We'll be like Linda Richmond, and we'll talk amongst ourselves. So those of you that know that reference, you'll know what I'm talking about.
So it's sunny outside. I feel like that's worth mentioning.
I know, they got
Look at the last 2 minutes
the
of my
blinds
change.
now, so we can't even see the sunshine,
Yeah.
which is even worse than that. They don't want us to be distracted by looking outside the window.
Well, while we're stalling, thank you all for being here. I know how time-consuming applying to grants is, and I'm sure you all have applied to more than one. So thank you for your time and commitment to all your organizations, not only tonight, but I'm sure throughout the year and throughout the years. But I just want to take that time to thank you all.
I mean,
It's good work being done.
I will add to that, I was gonna say that at the end, but thank you for doing that. We know that there are a lot of organizations in our community that are probably worthy of funding. They just don't quite meet the criteria for this, but there are other avenues out there that we can explore. Obviously, 2 of us have strongly suggested that we look at our still have some flexibility in our tourism program to maybe look at one of these applications. I do know there was a concern by several of us that who approved a project last year, which was through the Oregon City Farmers Market, and the SNAP program is very, very worthy. Obviously, there's a lot of projects that are worthy, but there's nothing like helping people eat, and we have several programs in our community like that, but nothing like the SNAP program. And I wish there was a way we could figure out on how to fund that, because I try to get to farmers market just about every week, and the number of people that I see there with the additional funds that we help provide are helping people have healthier diets and hopefully not. And I guess that leads to basically paying attention in school, because you're not eating a lot of sugar, you're getting healthy food, you're getting, things that are really nutritious. So, obviously that's a big one for me personally, which is why I go to the farmer's market. So
I'd actually like to chip in on this conversation.
Sure.
I don't usually, and I know how difficult it is to get in front of a standing body, because I used to do it. And it's worth it. And congratulations to those that successfully completed and submitted applications. There was a number that were disqualified for lack of successfully doing it, and I stand behind staff for doing that. That's the correct way to do it. But I know this, if I was after $20,000 and I spend 20 hours or 40 hours, I've never worked for $500 an hour in my life, so it's time well spent. So congratulations to those, and I give staff an attaboy, because this is much better than years past when we had to sort through applications that should not even have been under consideration. So good for them. And what we see every year is shortcomings in the criteria and the scoring, and that'll be a separate meeting sometime. I mean, I feel strongly about, we've disqualified the farmers market because they applied last year. But there have been others that applied over the years where they were maybe not primary, they weren't the applicant, but they were a provider of service to the applicant. And I wish someone could have coached the farmer's market to have done that. Either that or we remove that and we change the scoring system that you get 5 points if you've never applied and 3 points if you applied within 2 years and 0 points if you applied last year, something like that. Those are all things we can work out in the future, but I hate to disqualify a worthy source, but those are the rules and you have to live by them. You can't change the rules just because you don't like the outcome.
Well, I'm going to go with my experience. So when we approved the first conditional use permit for the Metro South Transfer Station, I was staff for the city of Oregon City, and so I had the pleasure of being the staff working on the Metro Enhancement grants. And the criteria has expanded a little bit, but primarily the reason that the city and Metro negotiated the original contract was of the detrimental effect of the transfer station on the neighborhood. And the neighborhood that was being most impacted by this was the Park Place neighborhood. So for the first few years, all of the grants went to Park Place. And they were able to achieve a number of projects that improved their community. And for those of you that don't know, we had to annex, and I say we had to because there was a health hazard annexation that was required by the state. So a lot of the septic systems in the Park Place area were failing, and the state stepped in and said, Oregon City, you will do this. And so it was a project that I'd never worked on anything quite like that, and I don't think most people who work in city government are subject to a health hazard annexation. It's very rare, but this was how Park Place came into the city. And so the Metro Enhancement grants went towards that. We then renegotiated with Metro to expand it to another defined boundary, which included the end of the Oregon Trail area into part of downtown. And then there was a third expansion where it applied citywide. So it has gone through, just so you're aware, it's gone through a bit of an evolution in terms of how we look at these projects. But the criteria is still, relatively the same. And there's a reason why the criteria is what it is. It has to do with what the impact is, how it's going to benefit the community, and where the source of funds are. So if I've misspoken anything, Councilor Lewis, let me know. But that is really why the criteria is defined the way it is. I don't have a problem with the criteria because I have that grounding and that background from doing some of the first Metro Enhancement grants as a staff person.
And I think you've captured the history beautifully. We do an enhancement grant program at transfer stations across the region. And so every single transfer station has a defined boundary around it. I think Oregon City is unique in actually having a full city as the boundary. And I think that's more power to, this grant process. The other piece is that we've moved from a Metro philosophy of it's simply about beautification and economic development, more towards the human services and more towards making sure that the grant monies are getting into community where you see the opportunity for people who need job training or otherwise are affected by, barriers that stem from the systemic kind of conditions around transfer stations. So it's something that's evolved at Metro as well as just here in Oregon City. We have an IGA that actually reflects that, which is why those criteria are laid out.
So intergovernmental agreement, so IGA, that's what that stands for. So we have an understanding, and we are, as a city resident, I am very grateful and thankful to Metro for allowing us to utilize some of the funding. And it really has made a difference in our community, I believe, over the time frame that I have lived here. And I certainly appreciate, even more so now being on this side of the dais and being able to help and participate in this process with my fellow committee members to enhance the community. And that's what it's really about to me. It's an enhancement, so.
Madam Chair, we're ready.
All right. How'd I do there?
You did very good.
All right.
You should have been a lawyer.
Well, as you know, I almost was. All right.
Okay, so I'll share the screen of the summary.
Flip your switches there. That gets you, so there's a little, oh, you don't know about that.
No, yes I do.
Oh,
I'm already there.
Okay. You're there. All right. We're ready for you.
So this is there are 6 folks 6 committee members that scored according to, and I took Commissioner Smith's calculation out of the totals because he didn't score. So the average score of each of these projects is here on the right. And these have been resorted by top to bottom average score. So this is where we're at right now. It would be back to the committee to decide basically the allocation of funds toward each grant. But this is how they've scored.
Who would like to lead off?
Can that be shrunk to include the monies that were requested? Is that dollar figure up anywhere in that?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can just condense it, because we basically just need to see the average score and and the other side, so. I'm glad you know how to mess around with this on screen, because I certainly don't. So who wants to start with thoughts? This is the amount that they've requested, and that's the total. And we have, and it obviously would have been helpful as, the others.
We have 341 total to allocate towards these projects.
You have 200,000.
200,000. So we are under budget.
Yeah, we're under, which is good, good.
So is there discussion that needs to be had, or can we move to approve the slate as
We can do, we have the ability to do whatever that we like. If we are ready to vote to say we are going to fund all of these, then we can do that.
I put a motion on the table to approve the slate as presented.
Second.
All right. So it has been moved and seconded that we fund everyone at their original award request. Is there any further discussion?
Or another motion?
Well, I just made.
What?
Or another motion?
No, we have one motion on the floor, so we'll deal with that. If we need to have another motion, then we'll have to wait. I do have parliamentary procedure background, so.
I had made my observations on DOCA. I'm not an enemy of DOCA. That was just a business observation. I'll go with the will of the committee.
Well, I can tell you that that's not how much money that's in the bank. I get to, from our budget.
All I know is
We
what
can
I read on the report.
We can discuss our budget with you at a different time with our director.
Not necessary.
All right, so there's been yes.
I would just like to say that I like the philosophy of fully funding as much as we can. And obviously this year with a smaller slate, I think partially because of you can't apply every year for 3 years, and just other conditions. So it makes it easier this year, but I really like being able to fully fund folks who apply. So thank you for that.
Okay, all right, so let's take the vote. So why don't we go ahead and do a roll call?
Aye.
Commissioner Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Lori Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner McGriff.
Aye. And you need to call.
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Smith is
Yeah, I'll
abstaining.
abstain.
Okay, so the motion carries, and we are fully funding all of the projects, and let's take the additional amount and let's carry that over for our next budget so we can see what else we can do. All right? So we are done. All right. So is there anything else the committee members want to discuss, or am I going to be allowed to get you out of here early?
And I'll just make one follow-up comment. So the next step for people who aren't aware is that you'll be entering into a letter of agreement with the City of Oregon City, and we'll be getting in touch with you with that documentation. And I will be your staff contact if you have questions going through there, and we'll set up meetings to go through all the requirements. But congratulations.
Wait, Councilor Lewis had something.
In the staff report, it was noted that there were several applications
Yes.
that did not make it to our review. And I guess I just want to encourage those applicants to reach out or to have staff directly reach out and reapply next year as applicable, either with more match with a better application that ties to the criteria we judge by or otherwise. So just really encourage communication and reapplication next year for those applicants.
Yeah, and just as Mr. Graham was probably going to say, we have some applicants that need to verify their match, and that is going to be very critical, because without that, we won't really be able to sign the memorandum of understanding with you, and we won't be able to award you the grant.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Thank you for the script.
Do you think that it's necessary to put that to a vote?
No, it's a procedural issue
Yeah.
that already exists.
Yes, it's required.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so if for some reason that doesn't happen, then we are not going to be able to make an award. We just won't be able to do that. If you want that enshrined as a motion, we can do that,
No,
but,
no, we're fine. If you're fine, I'm fine.
okay, all right, well, thank you, everybody, we're going to adjourn. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And the clapping at the end was fine.
Not a theater.